If you agreed to put in a boiler so you could have heat and hot water in the building and pay the taxes, you get a building for free.
Do you manage other people's properties?
We manage some co-ops and condos in Brooklyn.
You would pass up an opportunity on a good investment if it's hard to manage it yourself.
Yeah, it's because I don't think I would succeed in the investments. Actually, things look great on Excels, but then if you can't operate them, not gonna make money.
There's a lot of people who think real estate is passive.
Real estate's very active, unless you're just investing in some kind of hedge fund style investment.
When did you start your real estate journey?
It was in 11 years.
How would you say the multifamily market has changed from what it was 11 years ago?
That's a good question.
Welcome to another episode of the Dealmakers Chronicles. Today, we're joined by Shmuel Goldstein, a real estate investor, a rabbi, and a community leader. Welcome to the show, Shmuel.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely, man. We're really interested to learn more about you. You know, not every day you have a rabbi who's also a real estate investor. So I think that combination in and by itself is going to be a phenomenal conversation.
Good, yes, I think so. I think it's a good combo, but let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's known that you come from a real estate family, but I want to know your path. How did you personally get into real estate, and what role did your family's history in the business play in that decision?
Sure. So it's a good place to start. So I am third generation in my family's business. My grandfather started it. It's called Slope Realty. We're in Park Slope in Brooklyn. And over the years, we've kind of branched out into, we'll get to that, at doing different things. But it was never really expected. My family was always very good about, whatever it is you want to do. At a certain point, I decided, let me check this out, see how it went. And to my family's credit, they, sometimes in family offices, you come in and, you're now the future boss or the boss's assistant. They put me at the bottom. I was with the handyman. I was waiting in the car while the handyman did their job. And that was, yeah, they threw me in really, really to me, that's the biggest credit, is that I learned the business from the bottom up. I learned it from, we're a management company, and I learned really from the most basic part of what it means to manage a company, what it means to manage a business, dealing with construction, and that's how I got into it. Working, and it was a great privilege. I didn't get to work with my grandfather. He was already retired by the time that I joined, but I get to work closely with my father every day.
Very nice. So at what age did you decide that then you told yourself, okay, this is something that is, okay, it's my family's business, but this is becoming part of my passion and I want to join the family business? Because not every kid wants to join, especially we see a lot of businesses where the previous generation has businesses, but the new generation doesn't want to take over, doesn't want to continue. When did you feel that this is something you wanted to do and be part of it?
So I was living in Manhattan. I was actually in my final year of rabbinical school. And I had a summer off, and I said, this is what my family does, my father does, my grandfather does. Let me get a feel for if I like it. So during one, consider it kind of like graduate school. So during one summer off, I decided to get my feet wet and really just spend time in the office and learning about what does it mean to be in real estate, what does a typical day kind of look like. And I really liked certain things about it. Specifically, I would say my focus for the first 5-6 years was almost exclusively on the management end. And I liked the problem solving. I like that every day there's an ability to deal with a real issue or multiple real issues, and then try to creatively come up with ways to solve them. And it felt like a puzzle.
What were some of your earliest memories of your family being in real estate? Were you walking job sites when you were 5 years old, 6 years old? Was your dad complaining, coming home like, oh my God, this tenant's not paying us, this is what's happening? Well, what do you recall as some of your earlier memories?
Usually my mother and grandmother trying to get my grandfather and father to stop talking about business by the table.
I love that. I love that.
Stop talking about business, we can talk about other things. And that's something we're still not great at, but we try. That's probably one of the earlier memories. But also, I remember feeling very important when I went to visit my grandfather, and he let me operate the paper shredder. I felt very important doing that at like 6 years old.
Tell me how long ago did your parents, your family immigrated? So why Park Slope? How once you guys moved in, or tell me more backstory about your family overall.
Sure. So this is so I work with my father and my father's father. So my paternal grandfather. So he He was a Holocaust survivor. He lived in Poland. And my grandmother was actually born in near Tel Aviv. So she was born in Israel, and then her family moved when she was a young child. They met in New York. He was actually in the insurance agent. He was an insurance agent. I don't know. I think he was hustling. He was in his low 20s, mid 20s, just hustling, doing different things. And he just started buying. He realized that buying real estate could become lucrative. I'm not sure where he determined that, but for whatever reason, he decided I want to buy a home and I want to fix it up and I want to sell it. So he started out just buying kind of single family houses one at a time, fix and flip, fix and flip. He ended up in Park Slope because I think that was one of the only areas he was able to afford. And back
Wow.
then, it sounds funny
A little
today.
different today, huh?
Yeah, a little different today, but that whole side of Brooklyn kind of changed drastically. That whole side of Brooklyn was much rougher, and it was inexpensive. There were a lot of abandoned buildings. He used to get buildings actually in the very beginning. I think he got most of the buildings for free. Just pay the taxes and you get a building. That was some kind of government program at the time where if you put in a boiler, they didn't have boilers. So if you agreed to put in a boiler so you could have heat and hot water in the building and pay the taxes, you get a building for free. And that's,
Wow.
yeah, can you imagine? I'll take
No,
that.
I can't. But this reminds me of somebody told me in Williamsburg, the city was selling a square foot for $1.
Yeah, which is same concept,
It's
exactly.
like just please get it out of our hands. Just pay taxes, take it. It's almost free, right? Just to think back to those times compared to what it is now is just insane.
So were those buildings always were they in foreclosure or were they always government owned properties?
I think it was either, yeah, I think they were either foreclosure or government owned. Somewhere, somewhere, one of those options. But he did a lot of foreclosures back then, buying from foreclosures from the lender. That was, yeah, he says that he liked it because there was a big park there and there was trains to the city. But I think that was, I'll give him some credit for that, but but I think he admits, at the end of the day, he admits, he's like, they were giving away buildings, so I was like, I don't have money to buy buildings, let me take these. So that was, that was really it. It's, uh, call it luck, call it, God directing his hand. So somewhere in there.
Are your investments still mostly in Park Slope or are you guys branching off now and buying elsewhere?
So over the last 10 years, we've really branched out. I'd say over the last 10 years, with my father's direction, we've gotten into multifamily in a few different regions in the US. But over the past 5 years, we've really been focused on value add industrial.
But yeah, and that's still in New York City, or you guys footprint is
Oh, sorry. So that's so the industrial is mostly in the Midwest. We're doing a small deal now in Jersey, in South Jersey, but for the most part, we're around Cincinnati, Louisville, Lexington. We've really branched into the since Dayton. We've branched out into the Midwest for industrial, and we found some really good opportunities there.
very interesting. And with a lot of times when we notice like family businesses, when the latest generation, your generation comes in and you come with ideas and excitement, and the older generation is more reluctant to it. Walk me through that first, initial. Were you guys butting heads with your new ideas, possibly doing things differently, or were your parents and your grandfather open to these ideas?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. I definitely came in. I like to get things done. I came in with some big ideas, some more realistic, some less realistic. And on the one hand, having your ideas taken seriously is empowering, but also like respecting that there's a process, and sometimes not every process needs to change. So it was kind of a mixture of, I would say it was like a really good medium ground of like learning that certain processes that we have or certain industry standards of ways of doing things are there for a reason. And some of them are outdated and need to be adjusted. And kind of realizing case by case which one fell into where. At least when I started, and there's one big idea was with the way we handle turnovers and vacancies. And I said like it seems in the industry almost that the whole process was not done in an efficient way. And one of the first, shortly after joining, I said I had an unrealistic goal. I like setting unrealistic goals for myself. I said I want to have zero vacancy loss in our Brooklyn portfolio. right? Anybody who's in real estate will say that's incredibly unrealistic. But I started changing things in our leases, and I started to say they need to give notice 3 months in advance, and we need to, and I started really getting into the weeds of why do we have vacancy, and how can we have one tenant move out, the next tenant move in, and get a higher rent than we had beforehand. And we created a system. It's not foolproof. Some things fall through the cracks, but we went from an average of low 90s occupancy to very, very close to 100, and getting higher rents. And that was it's not a patented idea. I'm always happy to share it, but but that was an inefficiency that everyone I spoke to was like, yeah, this is how it goes, right? Someone moves out, you'll get it rented. Let's say someone moves out at the end of July, you'll get it rented, somewhere mid-August, hopefully, or probably September 1st. And I'm like, I don't think that inefficiency has to happen. We can, so fresh eyes is always good, but also realizing that the ways things were done, a lot of them are there for a reason and were done for a reason.
Do you guys own any rent stabilized apartments?
Yes, yes, we have our core of our portfolio is still our New York City, Brooklyn, and Manhattan multifamily and mixed-use buildings. So naturally, there's going to be some rent-stabilized tenants there, and that is another thing that we've really worked hard on, which is sometimes, let's call it like bigger corporate companies can create an us versus them approach within the the relationship between landlord to rent stabilized tenants, and we work very, very hard to have positive relationships. Number one, because it's good business, and number two, because it's the right thing to do.
How are you? What are your thoughts with the new mayor, right? And yes, we have the rent stabilized apartments that were, those rents were frozen in the 70s, and in 2019 kind of took away the loopholes to be able to destabilize them. But now he's kind of talking about a new wave of stabilization of free market apartments. What are your thoughts on that?
You're going to make me go against my one rule of not talking politics, but
I think real estate and politics, unfortunately, goes hand in hand. They affect everything we do on a daily
yeah,
basis.
yeah. As a rabbi, that's one of my rules too. Is no politics, right? Because I'll tell you, because what's the problem with politics is that there's so many things that people can agree on and can build each other up with. And then politics, oftentimes, not always, doesn't have to be this way, but oftentimes it's just like you're over here and you're over here, and it's like nobody even wants to listen or hear, or everybody comes in with their set agendas. But I'll answer your question in an indirect way, which is that I think that people who need help need to get help. And as a society, we have to be there to help each other. As a society, we have to. Like, I'm just stepping away from like a business perspective for a second. Just like as a human perspective, we have to be there to help each other. At the same time, when we're helping people, if we're not empowering them to do better, if we're not empowering them to set them up for more financial success, then we're creating problems with generational poverty. Just like you can have generational wealth, you can have generational poverty, where a person feels like no matter what I do, the best thing that's out there for me is a handout. And that's a terrible thing for a child to grow up feeling. People need help, and we should be there to help them. And that's as close as I'll get to politics, which is we need to like actively empower people to feel I can really do anything. And we look at New York City, and it's a city full of people from all different cultures and walks of life that came with very little and built themselves up. You can't go, you go one block and it's this beautiful melting pot of empowerment of people that came in with close to nothing and managed through hard work and God's help really build something. And a big part of that comes from the confidence to believe that you can do it. And I feel some of these policies do the opposite of build people up. They give in a way where a person does not feel capable to do better.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think we're thinking in line, but I think the way you answered is significantly better than the way I would have answered. So I'll replay this. And like I have to speak
Hold on,
like
that's
Shmuel. I
yeah.
think that experience of you being a rabbi is really coming out right now.
Uh,
So I spoke to you briefly on the phone. So from my understanding, you guys started to buy those buildings, and then you guys got into a point where you were developing and you were doing renovations, and you had projects that were heavy in construction, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about when that happened and are you guys building ground up, mostly renovating properties? What kind of projects do you guys do?
Sure, sure. So we don't do we do very little ground up construction. We do a lot of rehabbing, meaning taking existing structures, fixing up apartments, fixing up common areas. It's important to know what you're comfortable with, and I always like pushing our limits and going into an area where we're just a little bit uncomfortable. It's a good way to always grow is make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, but also being aware of what you know and what you don't know. And the truth is, I if you would ask me how do I build a building, what are the steps to build a building from the ground up, I wouldn't be able to tell you. We can renovate apartments, no problem. That we have a lot of experience. When it comes to ground up, we've partnered up with local GCs, with local developers, and we've done some really nice projects. But usually, someone else would be running point on that. But on any given time, we're like we always have a few units that are under renovation or a few construction projects going on at a time.
And when you look at deals, and I know you're focusing on a good amount of industrial, what metrics are you looking at when it comes to assessing your investment? Are you looking to hold them for a long period of time? Are you looking for a 5-year hold and trying to hit that certain kind of internal rate of return? How do you assess your deals to see if this is a good one or not?
So there's usually I would say two kind of boxes in which we invest, which is when we're investing for, let's say, for just my family, and when we're investing just family money, we're usually looking at more, I would call it longer term legacy kind of properties. So something that we don't need a big exit. We don't need if I like the property, we like the return, we like the basis, we think, hey, will I be happy if I hold this for 10 years? Then that's usually all I need to know is like, am I going to be happy that I bought this today? And am I going to be happy in 5 years and 10 years that we bought this? That's usually just very zoomed out. That's usually what I'm looking for when it comes to when we're just using family money. When we're getting other investors involved, and that's something we started doing. Traditionally, it was really just us. We didn't bring anybody else in with us. About 5 years ago, when we started doing these industrial in the Midwest, as well as a little bit of multifamily, Florida in the Midwest, we started to bring in investors. And on those deals, we like to have a very clear, let's say, on the shortest side, 3 years, on the longer side, 7 years. But usually I would say it's a 3 to 5 year hold. And it has to be clear, what are we buying? How are we creating value? And how can I take someone's money and confidently say, I'm going to take this money, my own money as well as their money, and I'm going to do something good with it. So what is the capital event that's going to happen? So there has to be just a kind of basic example. We're buying a vacant warehouse. We're buying it at $20 a square foot outside of Dayton, Ohio. I've got my great leasing team there. I use my back office as our the back office. I've got people on the ground. We have a really good operation in the Ohio, southern Ohio markets, as well as northern Kentucky. So we've got just great operations there, plug and play. We go ahead, we buy something. It's going to cost me another, I don't know, $10 in getting it up and running, right? So I'm in there for 30. I've got a tenant. It's now worth 60 a foot. And it took me 2 years, just big picture, right? So I say, okay, I'm taking someone's money at 20, we're spending another 10, we're in for 30, and it's going to be 60 a foot. And that's a kind of like a very clear game plan. When it comes to things, obviously we're thinking that way when it comes to family investments, but sometimes we can buy a triple net property that, okay, it's going to give us an 8% cash on cash, and I believe in this location, and I'm going to be very happy I bought this long term. And that's a deal we did, in an industrial deal we did in Florida, in near Fort Lauderdale, where we just felt this was a sale leaseback for 15 years with a great tenant. It's hard, not the investor profile we have isn't usually very excited about just making a steady 7-8% return but we said, this is perfect for us. We're going to make that, I think it's 7%, and it goes up over time. And we're going to hold this long term because I think we're getting this at a great basis in an area that's really, really good and getting better. Like, I'm going to be really happy long term that we bought this piece of real estate. So that's kind of, I guess, the two boxes. And when it comes to New York, we're always opportunistic, looking for things that make sense.
What's the leverage that you usually purchase these properties with? What are you most comfortable? Because I know it's funny. We talk to some developers that they want to be as highly leveraged as possible. They want to leverage every equity dollar that they syndicate to the most ability. Others, they're more on the conservative side. They would never go above 65%. Well, what is your sweet spot?
So I kind of reverse engineer it to what can the property afford? So what can the property afford comfortably? The last thing I want, what gets in the way that I think I've seen really smart, capable people not do well, is when they have this anxiety of not being able to cover their monthly expenses. And then the whole deal just becomes about them covering their monthly expenses, and they forget to execute their game plan because they're always so nervous. How am I affording my mortgage payment? My this, right? How am I've got APs 30, 60, 90. And their whole job just becomes managing which AP, which wheel, like the squeaky wheel, which one is, and the squeaky wheel kills deals. So to me, I want to make sure nothing's squeaking and I can do my game plan. So let's take multifamily. If you're renovating units and the whole time you're just thinking, I got to pay this vendor, I got to pay that, you're not able to focus on the big picture. So I only want to take the amount of leverage that the property can afford to pay. So if it's a vacant property and I'm taking a loan, then it means that I'm underwriting to keep a certain amount of reserves, that it wouldn't cause me any stress. It's not going to be difficult to pay it. And I think reverse engineering it that way is just good advice for everyone, because you're not, the worst thing you could do is just be spending your whole day worried about APs and which vendor needs to get paid first. I like to pay people on time. I like to pay people in full. I don't like, you want people being loyal to you. When you have a problem, you want that plumber or that electrician or that supply house, you want to be there for, you want them to go to you first when you have a problem. And if you're the guy that always pays them late and and every single time tries to cut them down something on the price, they're not going to go to you first. So if you treat people well, it's just, again, I feel like so many things is overlapped here of good business and just doing what, being ethical and moral just go hand in hand.
Does your deal size vary between you doing it for your family office or when you syndicate deals? Are the syndications typically bigger deals, or is it just the business plan that's different?
So that's a good question, because you would think it would be, right? You would think we would syndicate deals that we wanted to scale up, but we're really mostly syndicating the industrial deals, and some of those are small. I try to cast a wider net in a smaller pond. So we're looking at, you need an angle. You always need an angle. So what our angle has been, we can buy deals that aren't necessarily financeable right now because we've got a great team that does environmentals. So we could even buy environmentally challenged properties. We can buy properties that are vacant and not easily financeable. And that's kind of putting out the wider net. So if it's in an area where I'm already there, an area where I have 500,000 square feet of industrial, and there's a building around the corner that's another 30,000 square feet, I'll buy it if the numbers make sense, because I've already got so much going on over there. And that was also our approach in Brooklyn with multifamily. Was we even bought small 2/1s. We didn't really treat anything as too small. There were deals that were too big. There definitely deals that were too big, but we never really treated any deal as too small. If the numbers made sense and it was an area we were already in, right? So, like, I would look at certain blocks around Park Slope, and it was just small buildings, but owning a nice amount of small buildings, and that was, we found you can sometimes get premiums that way. You can get better deals that way by fishing in that smaller pond.
You mentioned Kentucky and Ohio, and you have like a very strong base there. How'd that come about? Was it that you guys were just brainstorming what areas should we be focusing more in America that makes more sense outside of New York, and then you just said, okay, let's try this, and then you started making some phone calls, or was it that some opportunity came to your attention and you said, wow, there's more opportunity over there. Let's just dig in deeper.
So it kind of happened a few things at once. A big part when we got into industrial was I started thinking just high level, like what is going on with industrial? Okay, I understand multifamily. People need somewhere to live. But industrial, so what's going on? People need to distribute things. Do we want to be in the last mile 3PL kind of business? Do we want to focus on manufacturing? There's so many different aspects within industrial, right? The same way you would say multifamily can have student housing, it can have class A, it can have workforce housing. There's similar in industrial. There's so many different subcategories. And we were attracted to the idea of where are things made? Where is manufacturing happening? And where can you reach within 1 day of trucking or even a half day of trucking a large MSA? And we kind of found a disconnect between the rents and the prices per square foot in parts of the Midwest. So what I mean by that is that if I go to some parts, let's say, of where I am in New York or New Jersey, and you'll go to, let's say, somewhere in servicing New York, you're right over in central or northern Jersey, let's say, and you're looking at rents of 15 a square foot, but sales prices are, I don't know, 200 a square foot. And then you go to other places and I'm like, well, if rents are $5 a square foot, but they're only trading at 20 or $30 a square foot, there's a disconnect there. So trying to find a disconnect in the market because people aren't, for whatever reason, just aren't buying there. So we looked at a lot of different markets. I really wanted it to be Florida. I worked hard for Florida to be the place we focused on, just because I have family there, and who from New York doesn't love going to Florida?
Yeah, we moved to Florida from New
Yeah,
York,
well,
so
there you
we
go.
love
Very
it.
good. So I'm speaking to the right guys about this. You're both in Florida.
We're both
So
in
right now
Miami
we're
now.
both in
Yeah.
Florida. 2 years.
Oh,
I
amazing.
moved 2 years ago from New York, and he moved 3 years ago.
Amazing. Okay, fine. So I'm speaking your language, but I was like, I want to work somewhere that I'm happy to go to. It took me time to get happy, like to be excited to go to like Cincinnati. That took a little time. I was always
Yeah, I
happy
can
to go.
imagine.
I was happy to go to South Florida. That was always fun
Yeah,
for me.
it's a
But
different world.
it took a little longer to be really happy getting off the plane in like Louisville or Lexington. But it's a nice city. It's a nice city. Nothing
The
against it. It's a
people are
nice
nice,
city.
right? You can
People
always
are
say that
very
people are nice.
People are nice. The labor market is hard. It's hard finding good vendors there. That was hard for us. That was really difficult. Um, Being creative, we had a guy who worked for us in Jersey relocate there to help run operations, and that was really helpful. But yeah, a few things happened where it wasn't our first market, but we spent a lot of time trying to figure out I don't want to do deals. I want business plans. Like I don't like jumping from one deal to the next. I like a business plan that I can rinse and repeat and keep on doing until it no longer makes sense to do it.
Yeah, like with research, it can be very intimidating because you have the whole country. Within the country, you have different states. Within the different states, you have different cities, counties, and they just and blocks. And New York, I think, is the biggest indication of a block by block type different neighborhoods that you can have. And a lot of developers and investors go through that same process, but they can't get to that niche. They can't figure it out. So, do you think you could repeat what you did in a different market, or was it like, oh wow, we hit a gold mine? It will be hard to do this somewhere else in the country.
I think that anybody can learn any market. I'm not sure once you learn the market if you're gonna want to or be able to buy properties there. But it's important to really know your market. This is if I would say that one area that me and my father are always going back and forth on is how granular to get within locations. And to me, I like to be as granular as possible. Meaning, if you own a building, you should know what your different layouts look like. You own a multifamily building, you should know like, oh, the A line looks like that, the B line looks like that. Maybe you don't need to know it, but you need someone close in your operation who knows it. The closer up to the owner of the company that is that familiar with the property, the better. So the same thing goes for your markets. You should know your markets really well. And because of that, if someone sends me a really good deal right now in Houston, Texas, it might be a great market in Houston, but I won't know if it's a good deal or a bad deal. I can go on CoStar, I can go on Reonomy. I pay for these things, and I can go on these things and I can read articles. But if I don't have firsthand real knowledge, I don't trust what I read online because the Wall Street Journal can say rents are up, and then tomorrow it can say rents are down, and either way, it didn't really affect what the rents actually were, right? So,
Are you a big fan of walking the neighborhood before you buy anything in there?
oh
Just get
yeah,
the
yeah,
coffee,
more than
drive
that.
around, see the kind of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that
But everybody makes a problem. They go during the day. You have to go at night. You have to go at night.
So even for industrial, you have to go at night.
Industrial, the area, yeah, you want to make sure it's not high crime. But
Hmm.
multi, I'll always go at night, hang out outside the property, see what's going on. Because during the day, most of the time properties are quiet. So you're seeing the grounds, you're seeing the condition of the units, you're seeing that kind of stuff. If everybody's home, that's probably a problem too. If nobody's working, it makes it harder to pay the rent. But
Hmm.
but at night, you'll get a feel for what's going on at the property a lot better. But yeah, I like spending a lot of time there for our industrial stuff. We have a partner who's there. I'd say every 2 weeks he's on site. I go a little less than that, but one of the people in our organization is there every 2 weeks on site.
We spoke about Park Slope before, right? And what a drastic change Park Slope has gone through and continues to go through. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your family has been all about preserving and buying the building and keeping the architecture and all. How do you feel about this change in Park Slope, where now it's rezoning, it's big, mid-rise buildings coming up, kind of going against the grain of what the neighborhood used to be?
So I just noticed I even have exposed brick behind me in my
Yeah, I see that.
Jersey. So that's the real. We're even preserving Park Slope character in Jersey. But but listen, people have to make money. They need business plans that make sense.
Right.
Not. I personally like old things. I like the older style. I like the architecture. So whatever I can do in my own buildings to preserve them, I do. But it has to also be financially feasible. If you can knock down a 3 unit and build a 50 unit, then you should, right? Then you definitely should. So it has to be economically feasible. So I think wherever you can, there's something to that neighborhoody charm that I really. I'm probably very biased the amount of time I spend in Park Slope, but I love it. I love Park Slope, and it really has I think a unique charm that Park Slope and a few neighborhoods around it have.
Yeah, the reason why I bring it up specifically Park Slope is because Park Slope is one of the more gorgeous neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And over the last 10 years, I've noticed that the mid-rise buildings that are going up, there isn't a lot of thought about the facade and how that building is going to fit looks wise, right? It's one thing to take advantage of the FAR and building, on a corner that used to be a gas station. Now you're building a mid-rise building, right? But it really stands out where it's no longer being part of Slow, but it's become more like Brooklyn Heights, where it's
Yeah,
square, it's
right.
rectangular.
You
It's
go down Fifth Avenue and it's just all right. Fourth Avenue, Fifth
Yes,
Avenue,
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring to. Those
yeah,
avenues.
Third even now. Like it's the almost half of most of Gowanus too. Yeah, I hear that. That's interesting. I don't know. You don't see many new buildings that have that older look to it. I wonder what that would look like. I'd have to find one. Most of my buildings, because we don't do ground
We
up, most of my buildings are, pre-war. Most of the buildings we have are older pre-war buildings that inside are renovated and
Right,
well kept, and the insides of the units, many if not most of them, are newly renovated, but
right.
the look is a old brick building.
Because, for example, we finished we built two townhomes in Red Hook, 96 Coffee Street and 98 Coffee Street. And one of the biggest things for us was, and when we were talking with the designer and the architect, is to keep the Red Hook feeling. So we kept it industrial red brick. It's luxury townhomes, it's five-story townhomes, but at the same time, from the outside, it fits into the neighborhood. It kind of melts into it.
I wish more people would do that. That's
Yes, and it's not like you're cutting your profit margins by it. You're just
right.
taking into account and keeping the identity of the neighborhood.
Might even help your profits. It might be more desirable.
Yeah, I think it just takes a conscious effort to do that, and I think a lot of people don't care. I think they do. They underwrite an Excel spreadsheet, and they say whatever works. They trust the architect unconditionally, even if the architect is a little bit expired or his views of architecture and what it should look like, and they just go in blindly. So I think that's a big component of it. I kind of want to go back to your vacancy. I know you implemented certain systems like, ask and tell us if you're renewing your lease 3 months before your lease expires. But the loyalty to the tenants, would you contribute that to just more than just sending them paperwork a little earlier? Is there something that you guys do in your buildings that makes the tenants want to stay there for a longer period of time?
So I always am very service driven, and I, whether it's our supers, our maintenance staff, whatever it might be, my secretary, my front office, you know, we very much try our best to be as service driven as possible. And to remember, someone calls you with something like, which to me might be like, okay, what's the big deal? To remember, to that person experiencing it, it might actually be a really big deal. So let's take like a routine, regular maintenance call that comes in, right? So a maintenance call comes in and someone's like, I don't know, my cap, like the a knob fell off my cabinet, right? Nothing urgent, nothing serious. So someone might be like, okay, I'll schedule that in a week or two. Like, what's the big deal? But to me, it's like, okay, so number one, I want the opportunity every time a service call comes in to show how good we do service. That's it. Maybe it's a little bit of an obsession, but like, great, I have an opportunity to show that our team cares about you as a tenant, right? So that means dealing with it properly. And I'm on purpose picking like such a non-important, right? Like it's not like a leak, it's not like anything, right? You could get to it in 2 weeks. It's just a knob on a cabinet. But that makes a person feel seen, and that makes a person that converts into loyalty.
And I think it definitely helps when you manage your own properties, right? You're not really outsourcing that to somebody else.
I don't really get third parties. I don't get. I mean, it's not. I don't. Anybody who does third parties, I'm sure they're wonderful, but I don't like the idea of buying something you can't manage yourself, and it's a terribly inefficient business model, terribly inefficient. But nobody cares about your property as much as you do, or cares about the bottom line as much as you do. So I don't like buying things that either myself or a partner that has equity in the deal is managing.
Do you manage other people's properties, or is it just the properties that you guys have in your portfolio?
So we manage some co-ops and condos in Brooklyn, some buildings that have, co-ops and condos. Usually it was ones that we had some affiliation with, whether we at one point owned a few units there, or otherwise. But for the same reason that I don't want other people managing mine, I don't really want to manage other people's buildings. It could be an interesting revenue stream, but meaning if I'm philosophically opposed to it, then I should be consistent, right? So I've done a favor. There was someone who I managed two of her buildings. She was a friend of my grandfather's, and my office managed two of her buildings. She was an older woman and really the sweetest lady around, and she owned two buildings in Park Slope, and we managed them for her. But we're not there's a lot of scale. There's a lot of ways to scale our business. As of right now, that's not one of them.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So if you have two properties, right, and let's just say your 3% management fee for those two properties would be $30,000 that goes to a third-party management company. And if they were to listen to you and it says you want to manage your properties in-house, but if a person says, I wouldn't mind doing that, but the $30,000 a year doesn't really justify me being able to do that as opposed to just paying somebody who has a system in place. With economies of scale, I think it does make sense. But what would you say to that person who says, should I be managing it myself if I have small properties, or do I hire somebody else?
If someone can't, it's a good question, because if someone can't give the time for it, let's say someone, I don't know, inherits a property and they've never dealt with real estate before. And now they've got this, I don't know, 20 apartments, and they're like, not only can I not do a good job, I don't know what I'm supposed to even do to do a good job, right? And so in such a situation, I think a person needs to. But if someone's a real estate professional, I think they should be able to manage their own properties. I don't like it as an expansion business model to just go third party. And because of that, we're very limited in how we buy multifamily out of state. And that was also part of the precursor for, well, what's something that we can manage ourselves? What's something that we can manage in-house? Or multifamily, I mean, we could open a satellite where we own some multi in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're playing with the idea of really doubling down on multifamily there in Louisville and Lexington, and actually opening up a satellite management office there. But that's some ways down the road.
So you would pass up an opportunity on a good investment if it's hard to manage it yourself, pretty much. Am I understanding
Yeah,
correctly?
because I don't think I would succeed in the investment. So if someone showed me something that's like, okay, it's a great price per door, you've got room in the rents, and everything made sense to me. But if I don't know how I'm gonna actually, things look great on Excels, but then if you can't operate them, you're not gonna make money. People treat real estate sometimes as if it's different than any other business. Pretend it's a supermarket, right? So it's like, even if a supermarket looks great on an Excel sheet, I'm not gonna go buy a supermarket in another state because I'm gonna go hire people out there, but I'm gonna not know how to manage this supermarket. So pretend real estate is literally anything other than real estate and decide can I does it make sense for me to be completely absentee in it?
And it's so interesting how you say that because there's a lot of people who think real estate is passive. And the only people who know real estate is not passive are the people who are in the business. Because I think there's way too many YouTube videos saying buy a passive property, get a cash flow. It's just not that easy. I wish people knew that.
Yeah, I mean, like those kinds of YouTube things that go viral, it's kind of like, okay, can I buy a single family home and like, I don't know, pick a random place that I've never been to and never going to go to, have a tenant, call repair people out of go on ChatGPT or Google and find someone to to fix things. I could probably do that, but chances are, if I'm not actually there, hands-on, it might just be luck if you're making money. I don't know. I don't believe in that as a business model. It doesn't have to be you. It could be partnering up with someone who you trust who also has equity in the deal, right? I'm very into working together collaboratively with others who have a skill set that I don't have. And not no one person has every skill set. But I think real estate's very active, unless you're just, I don't know, investing in some kind of hedge fund style investment.
How long ago did you start? When did you start your real estate journey? How long ago was that?
It's been 11 years. This summer,
11 years.
11 years.
Wow. And
Yeah.
in those 11 years, if we were just to talk about Brooklyn, how would you say the multifamily market has changed from what it was 11 years ago?
That's a good question. Well, occupancy is strong. It was strong then. Um, Rents consistently are going up, at least in the areas we are, sometimes even significantly. COVID was rough. We had buildings where we went from close to 100% occupancy, just people would just either get up and leave or not renew. And especially in some of the kind of buildings we had where the average rents were about, over $4,000 a month. Those are people who started looking at their rents and they said, well, do I really want to be in the city or do I want to instead, right? Interest rates were low and they said, I can instead buy that house that I've been thinking of buying outside of the city, outside of Brooklyn, outside of the city. So we actually had a lot of softening in our occupancy at that point, and that was tougher. The same thing with the retail that we have. Um, I don't know if this sounds funny, but I feel like there's such an like resilience in New York that there's twists, there's turns, but like things just keep happening and there's some level of routine. I know that's not a very exciting answer, but in many ways what I do in terms of managing properties now, we're using a little bit more, different softwares, some AI, different things like that to help us. But all in all, things are pretty similar. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign I should be. Maybe that's a sign that I should be thinking of new things to like new techniques and stuff. But yeah,
No, no. To the point that you're making about the resiliency of New York City, I think it's right on the money. I think especially when it all happened, if you read the headlines, Wall Street is leaving, the stock exchange is leaving, everybody's leaving New York City, like the doom and gloom, New York City is done kind of scenario. Those were really scary times for every landlord, but that was the time to buy, right? Because everything was at a discount. I guess my question was more towards, do you see opportunities now more or less versus, for example, 10 years ago in being able to acquire and grow your real estate portfolio?
definitely more opportunities now. There's more opportunities, but they're very different. Like we never would have thought that you would see, you know, a six cap trading in a neighborhood like Carroll Gardens. Like if someone told you they would see an actual six cap with real like trading, like you'd be like, you're nuts. That's there's barely anything for sale there, and that's probably better than Park Slope, right? Like things like that, or not being able to bump rents up in rent stabilized tenants really affected an upside plan. So buildings trading that have high rent stabilized percentages are really also trading much higher than we would have thought. So it's kind of like the price is softened, but at the same time the return softened. So they kind of so so you're I don't think there's much quote unquote better deals. It's just the game change.
Are you do you get turned off at all by rent stabilized buildings in terms of acquisitions? I know you have currently in portfolio, but there's some developers with such fear going forward. They're like, if it has even one unit rent stabilized, I do not want to touch it.
I'm not scared of compliance. Compliance just means you have to be on your game, right? So when it comes to rent stabilized means get your paperwork in order, have everything, you need to run a professional operation. So it's work, but I'm not scared of it. It's a little mind-numbing dealing with all the different compliance, but it's something that has to be done in New York City. Um, if I could make a bet on if I have patient capital, I just want to buy things at low price per door and low price per foot. That's going to cash flow today and not even make a return on it. If I have X amount of dollars that I say, hey, I've got $5 million here and I could just buy, I don't know, $20 million worth of real estate and I don't need to make a return on that money, I'm putting that into like low price per door, 80, 90K a door, rent stabilized, where the rents are average rents are 25% of what the market is. Why? Because I can't tell you when it's going to change, but I think I'll be happy in 20 years that I bought.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the money there. I think something will change with
Yeah,
those rent stabilized apartments because
I think my kids will thank me if I did that, but you need $5 million that you say, I'm not going to make money on this $5 million, right?
right.
Or I'm going to make a very low return on it.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready for that. You have to have patient capital, really patient capital.
Yeah, or patient capital or capital that's looking for depreciation, right?
Yeah,
Because there's capital out there that they need to balance off their profits in
right,
other properties, and for them, depreciation is sometimes even more important than making a return.
right. That's a good point.
For the deals where you bring on investors, which seems like they're value add industrial, what would you say stops you from doing more of them? Is it just inability to manage more properties? Is it the inability to raise more equity, or is it just a lack of seeing more deals?
So for
Or is it all
better,
three?
it's a little bit of both. A big part of it is time. Just having the time to properly hunt for deals. So now I have someone who's just kind of, I would call it like doing the first touch, meaning reaching out to the kinds of deals. I gave her parameters of what I am looking for, and she goes ahead and sends me, oh, okay, they do want to sell, or even starting to reach out to owners directly who have owned their properties for, let's say, more than 10 years in that are in the manufacturing business. There's a lot of turmoil, a lot of moving things are happening out there, especially in the Midwest. So reaching out to owners, hey, would you consider an offer? That's something that I just don't have the time to do, and I have someone doing that for me now, which is great. I just need to make sure that I actually review the things she sends me. But outside of that, for better or for worse, we're not. Hunger is a good thing. Feeling like I want to do X amount of deals. I never feel that way. Some people say they're a deal junkie. I'm the furthest thing from a deal junkie. Like, I don't feel the need or a strong pull to like have to do deals. It's rather when I see something that I think is going to be lucrative, then I want to make money and I want to share that and I want to give other people the opportunity to make money alongside me. But sometimes I look at people who are, I would call them like they're like a deal junkie. All day they're thinking the next deal, and that's great, and that's really good fuel to have. It's really not me, not the way our operation is. I'd rather miss 5 opportunities than get into one bad one. So we're pretty conservative.
You mentioned before, your time constraint, and I guess a big part of it is because besides real estate, you're a rabbi, and your wife is running a not-for-profit. Tell us about, balancing those two aspects of life, right? Being part of the community, being a rabbi, being so involved, both you and your wife, versus the demands of real estate, which is very demanding.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so first off, I have a wonderful wife and 2 children, and I try to give my wife and my children the proper amount of time. It doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. And
Unfortunately, no, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I have three, so I know what you're talking about.
Nice, nice. All right. So it's balance. Balance is very hard. Um, I don't have it all. I don't have it all figured out, not even close. Um, and I think being okay with sometimes dropping the ball. I think that's like an important lesson I've learned is if I'm going to try to do everything perfectly, I'm going to end up doing absolutely nothing, right? All day I'm just going to be stressed about did I do that perfectly? So instead, I'm going to try to do the best that I can. I'm going to try to prioritize based on what's most important for right now. And certain things are going to be neglected. Certain things are not going to be done exactly on time, or they're not going to be done exactly perfectly. So knowing what to neglect is a skill I'm still figuring out, and where to put your energy. My wife and I have, I would call it like every morning we drink coffee together before we go anywhere, and because we do a lot of with the community work together, we have a strict no talking about like tasks, no tasks, no planning, and I start my day with just hanging out with my wife for about 15-20 minutes in the morning, drink a coffee together, and then we usually hopefully we get to speak at one point during the day, but oftentimes we're just it's a little bit of a hectic schedule. But yes, and that way it kind of sets my day in the right tone. Now balancing work, my community, my synagogue, it's a hard balance. It is a hard balance. This week, what's today's Tuesday? Yeah. Today is Tuesday. Uh, two wedding for good things, but you know, two weddings and one engagement party, celebrations in the community that not only to show up to as a guest, but to be a part of, and giving classes, different things like this. There's a lot going on, so time management is important, but also so is taking time to be there for yourself. You know, I catch myself sometimes, and I'm just running from work meeting to synagogue meeting to counseling this person to figuring to talk, and it could be crazy sometimes to shift from plumbing problem at a building to helping someone deal with something going on in their personal life. It can be kind of hard to jump, switch those hats. But then taking a brief moment to just focus on yourself, to breathe. Meditation is key. Meditation is very important. Taking time for yourself, and something that is good, healthy, something that is good for you to do is crucial, I think, for everybody. The more busy you are and the more, let's call it, external stress is being put on you, the more important it is to have that time where you create that internal equilibrium. Just yeah, just this week we opened up. My wife and I opened up a home for girls that my wife is really running it. That for whatever reason, for various reasons, we're not able to live at home anymore, and it's something that she opened, and she's dealing with that. She's actually an architect. She has her own business. There's a lot, and my community. There's a lot, going on, but making sure to balance is important. That's all it is. There's so much going on, and I would also say, kind of like realizing within your own. Let's take a step back from like time management and just like the way a person looks at their own schedule. Is that what I'm doing in my community and what I'm doing at work and what I'm doing with my family, ultimately, they're all for the same purpose. So what does that mean? What do I mean by that? It's for the same purpose of living a meaningful, fulfilling life. So whether or not right now the way to live a meaningful, fulfilling life is to be talking to you guys on a podcast, which is super fun, and later, having a meeting with someone counseling, and then having prayer services in the synagogue, and then dealing with other work stuff, that it's all one of the same. It's all part of that same reason to live a fulfilling and meaningful life. And as long as that's the goal, then whatever, so to speak, hat I'm wearing, it's all really one of the same.
Absolutely. How old are your kids?
So my daughter's 10 and my son is 8.
Oh, wow. So they're
Yeah.
already, I mean, they're already boy and girl. They're not children. I mean, they're not little
Yeah.
babies yet. So you had them a while ago. You look very young. You either age well or you started very
I
early.
don't know if I age well, but yeah, I don't know. I think both, maybe both. I don't know. Yeah, getting a little gray. There's some gray creeping in. Yeah.
So, well, one of the questions that we're going to ask you is, how, you being a rabbi, how that affected your approach when it comes to investing and managing tenants and lending company. I think we touched a little bit on all those things where you come from a humanitarian perspective first, right? You care more about I can't more what equally about the person itself as opposed to, okay, this is just rent that's coming in that has to that I have to collect.
Right. There's obviously, goods and services. You provide a service. You expect to, right? You rent an apartment. You expect rent to come in, right? It's But at the same time, the more you focus on, well, I'm providing a service, I'm providing this apartment, and I want to give them a healthy, good place to live in that they're proud to call home. Guess what? They're more likely to pay their rent on time when they can tell that their landlord treats it that way. And yeah, that's a big thing that like when I realized that watching the bottom line and providing good service to tenants is actually the same thing. The best way to watch the bottom line is to provide a good service and to be on your A game. Now, it doesn't mean spending money frivolously. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means caring and thinking, how do I do this in a professional, efficient manner that the person also feels that they were cared for?
Absolutely. When you joined your business, your family business, did you at any point in time felt like you need to prove yourself or you need to do something that, where your family says, oh, wow, good for you. You actually contributed a lot. And was there a time where you thought to yourself, I earned my stripes on this one?
That's a really good question. The beginning, I definitely had that. I would say the first like year or maybe even 2 years was very much I wanted to show how hard I worked. I was like, I'm putting in all this time. I want everybody to see how hard I'm working. I want everybody to see how much I'm doing. And I'm not sure exactly when it shifted. At this point, obviously, I want to do what I need to do at work, but I, if you're going to ask me, do I rather work or hang out with my family or, learn something in my synagogue? It's the latter. So now I want to work as little as possible, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm rolling on my sleeves, putting in the work. But if I can, right? If somehow I find an extra free hour in my day, I'm not like thinking, how can I work more? I'm thinking, okay, awesome. Now I can do something other than work. And I think that's an important thing to realize is like whole life is work. It's not actually, look at most successful people, their whole life is not their work. They have passions, they have things they care about. They have a rich, fulfilling life outside of their workplace too. And it's something that it took me a year or two to realize that like I'm not meant to just be a cog in a machine. I'm not meant to just be just working as many hours as I can, as consistently as possible.
No, that's a very good point. I think now, I would say more than ever, I don't want to say in the history of humankind, but I would think so. I think people identify way too much of their personal self with their position. And I think that also contributed a lot to destroying the family dynamic where instead of wanting to be a good father, instead of wanting to be a good wife, you want to be a VP of something in Goldman Sachs. And you wear that on your forehead, where you are a community person, you're a father, you're a son, and that's your priority. And business is almost secondary. And I think, myself included, I do believe that's the best way to do it because that's the only way you can find joy. It's very hard to get that title and be happy with it if that's the only thing you want, right? If there's nothing else in your life that gives you joy outside of just that title on your business card, it gets tough. And I think you're absolutely doing it right. So kudos to you.
I'd call it like qualitative versus quantitative goals, right? So a quantitative goal is going to be, does my business card say that? Does say, X or does it say Y? A qualitative goal, which is, it's a hard thing to like in a business, right? Do I feel that I gave it my best shot? Do I feel like I worked really hard and I used every tool at my disposal? That's a qualitative goal. And I think ultimately a person will feel more successful, which will lead them to actually be more successful if they're more focused on qualitative goals and quantitative goals, meaning not how many tasks did I finish, but how did I conduct myself while I did those tasks. You're probably going to end up maybe in the short run, it might take, in the long run, I firmly believe you will end up far more successful and happier if you focus on qualitative goals.
Where are you now in the family dynamic? Are you pretty much running the family office, or is your father still? Because you mentioned your grandfather retired, and now is it still your father and you, or are you kind of taking over the reins and pushing the company forward?
So my father, yeah, so my father runs, I would call it more of he's the CEO, he's running the bigger picture. I'm running more, I would call it the operation, so lining certain things up. So number one, that would mean, ultimately, I'm searching for new deals, and then when it's going through my family office, those are things that my father says, I like this, let's do it. So it's kind of setting the table for that, bringing in new opportunities and then running the operations. But it's my father and me, thank God, work very well together. We have different approaches and different skill sets that just bouncing ideas off of each other works excellent. And yeah, I would say he is the big picture direction of the business, and I would call it more of the execution.
Are your children at all expressing any kind of interest in real estate yet?
No, not at all. They're still at the stage where like they want to be like a, I don't know, a basketball player or an astronaut or like
Yeah, it's not like that
maybe
taking
they
the
will
job
be. I don't
site, right?
know. But yeah, maybe. But my daughter loves cooking. She wants to be a she likes science. She likes cooking and stuff like that. My son likes playing basketball at this point. So we'll see where that takes him. Yeah.
For when he, or I would say your son or your daughter, if she wants to be involved, if you get to a point where you kind of they're of age and they don't want to do real estate, like how will you take that? Because 3 generations is a very long time, and you almost want to like prolong it. What if there's a hard stop with your children? Is that something that's going to concern you, or you're more of just do whatever you want as long as you're happy?
So it's funny, when I was thinking about going into the business, the reaction from my family was it was like almost to the extent of I don't want you to do this because they so much didn't want me to feel pressure. They were like, I want you to know like you don't need to do this. You can do anything. For undergrad and college, I was studying psychology. That was probably the path. Once I decided to be a rabbi and be involved in synagogue and community life, I ended up also just getting a little bit more involved with my family's business at the same time. But yeah, real estate until I was my plan really was not to join my family's business until I tried it out that one summer and realized that I liked it. For my kids, I'd be very happy as long as they are happy, functional, stable adults, kids, adults. That's my only goal for them. My only goal for them is to be healthy, stable, functioning adults. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. Same thing. Like a lot of times people would ask me the same question about my 3 kids. And to me, it's always, I just want them to be happy and commit 100% to whatever they choose. Like whatever the direction they choose, just commit yourself, make it your passion and fully succeed in it. It doesn't have to be with what I do. I think that this is, the path that I chose, but I think everybody has to choose their own path. Looking ahead, how do you see yourself and the company progressing in the future? Whether it's Brooklyn and possibly beyond. You mentioned before, pushing the limits of what you guys are doing and doing newer things.
So I think we're going to be doubling down on industrial. I think we're getting involved with outdoor storage. We're doing a deal now in New Jersey, in town called Lumberton, New Jersey, kind of in between Philly and Trenton, but a little bit. It's a small deal, but I think industrial outdoor storage is going to be a good direction for us. And I think that'll allow us to also do it a little bit closer to home because there are some deals in the tri-state that make sense. And industrial in the Midwest. I think that's it's been working for us, and I'd like to see that continue and just continuing to grow. When it comes to, I think on a personal level, I don't think it's gonna be part of our syndications and investors, but I think on a family and a personal level, investing in New York in a quiet way, deal by deal, long-term holds, rent stabilized buildings, kind of go against the grain a little bit, buy those buildings that are 90%, if not 100% rent stabilized, that are just low price per foot, low rents, and place that bet with personal and family capital to say this money's going to be parked here because I think this is a smart place to park it. It's hard to take an investor and say, what are we doing? We're going to buy this, and in 20 years we're going to do like it's not a business plan. So you can really only do that with your own money.
That's interesting, right? Because so far, I feel like in New York, and correct me if I'm wrong, the rent stabilized laws are only getting worse. And the people who are coming to power, even with a new guy, he wants to completely stop the increase, right? You're not concerned that the trend will just keep going down this path?
There's going to be a breaking point. I don't know if we're there. It might get worse. It might get worse, but that's why this is. It's like when you buy a stock, and if I buy, I don't know, Apple or something like that, Amazon, right? And if I sell it in a month, maybe it'll make money, maybe it won't. But it's kind of the way I would view it is you're buying like a stock that you think if I hold this, they're only going to go up long term. That's kind of the way I would treat it is that will things get worse in a year or two? It's possible. I really hope not. For my sake and everybody else's, I really hope not. But it is possible. It's a realistic possibility that things actually get worse over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. But I think the resilience of New York is that it always bounces back and bounces back stronger. Maybe I'm wrong and it's just because I'm here and this is what I know. But I think if you just look historically, buying, no, I don't know many people other than maybe they bought at the peak of the market at 2015 or they bought with aggressive business plans. If my business plan is I'm just buying it on today's cash flows. I'm not looking to increase any rents. I just think I'm going to get appreciation over a long period of time. I think it'll be a good idea. And yeah, in 2 years, are you going to call me and be like, look, this got so much worse? It's like, yeah, it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the, like, you have to be able in 2 years when it gets worse. Like, yeah, that's all part of the plan. We're in year 2 out of 20. There's time.
But yeah, but Shmuel, thank you so much for coming on this podcast
Oh,
and
thank you
allowing us
guys.
to interview you.
This was
Uh,
awesome. A lot of
you
fun.
are
Yeah,
our first
thank you.
rabbi and our first person we've spoken who comes from a real estate family. So thank you for being bold.
All
Appreciate that.
right, you got it. You got it. And yeah, let's get a drink when next time I'm down in Florida.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that.
And if we're in New York, we're gonna definitely reach out. Love to get a drink, meet you in person.
Okay,
Absolutely, we love that.
let's do it. All right. Nice to
Thank you,
meet you guys.
Shmuel. All
Thank you
right,
so
you have
much.
a
Nice to meet you, Shmuel.
great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.